The photo album falls open to a page Margaret Lockwood hasn't seen in 40 years. A craftsman house with rose bushes climbing the porch, a young couple standing in front of the door they'd just unlocked for the first time. She's clutching it now in the back of a medical transport van. Her husband Donald slumped beside her, still foggy from Thursday's stroke. It's Saturday evening. 72 hours ago, they owned that house outright. Now they're being delivered to Serenity Gardens Assisted Living like packages with the wrong address. Margaret would protest, but Vanessa's lawyer said cooperation proves competence. She would call their neighbor, but her phone has been secured for safekeeping. She would ask Donald what to do, but he keeps asking why they're leaving home when the roses still need trimming. The van doors open to peeling paint and the smell of industrial cleaner masking something worse. But 3 days later, a 16-year-old janitor mopping their hallway will notice what trained nurses ignore. Margaret's medication dosage is wrong. Donald's therapy appointments don't exist. And the monthly fees draining their account? Pure fiction. Darius Webb isn't supposed to care. Foster care taught him that helping people gets you hurt. Yet when he finds Margaret's handwritten note in the trash, wrong medication, nobody listening, need help, something shifts. Have you ever watched someone you love disappear into a system that treats them like paperwork instead of people? Stay with us to discover how 3 broken people, a woman who lost her voice, a man who lost his words, and a boy who lost everything, will gather receipts, risk everything, and prove that family isn't about blood. It's about who shows up when the system says you don't matter. This is their story. The roses needed trimming. Donald Lockwood had been saying it for 3 days, ever since the October heat had coaxed out one last bloom on the climbers by the front porch. Thursday morning, he pulled on his work gloves, the leather ones Margaret had bought him for his 75th birthday, and headed outside with his pruning shears. Margaret was arranging prescription bottles on the kitchen counter when she heard the thud. Not a crash, just a thud, like a bag of mulch dropped on concrete. She found him sprawled in the rose bed, shears still clutched in his right hand, the left side of his face slack. The ambulance arrived in 12 minutes. The hospital admitted him in 30. By Thursday evening, the neurologist was using words like minor and good prognosis and speech therapy. By Friday morning, Vanessa was in the waiting room with a lawyer Margaret had never met. Emergency guardianship, the lawyer explained, sliding papers across the hospital cafeteria table. His name was Marcus Webb, no relation to anyone Margaret knew, though she'd remember that name later. Your husband suffered a cerebrovascular event. Your daughter is concerned about his care needs, about both your care needs. We're fine, Margaret said. Mom. Vanessa's hand covered hers, warm and damp. You're 73. Dad's 76. He can't even speak right now. Donald could speak. He'd asked for water that morning, the words thick but clear. Margaret had held the cup while he drank. The house is too much, Vanessa continued. All those stairs, the yard. What if you fall? Margaret wanted to say they'd lived in that house for 40 years without falling. Wanted to say Vanessa hadn't visited in 8 months before this. Wanted to ask why a lawyer was here before a care plan. But Marcus Webb was watching her with the expression of someone documenting behavior. And she'd been a paralegal long enough to recognize an assessment. Cooperation shows competence, he said gently. So Margaret signed where he pointed. Vanessa cried and hugged her. The lawyer witnessed with a notary stamp that appeared from his briefcase like a magic trick. Saturday morning, a social worker arrived with discharge papers. Donald was released not to their home, but to appropriate care pending evaluation. The medical transport van waited in the circle drive. Where are we going? Donald asked. The words came slowly, but they came. Serenity Gardens, the social worker said. It's lovely, very well reviewed. Margaret tried to call their neighbor Paul, who'd watched their house during the one vacation they'd taken in 10 years. Her phone was in her purse. Her purse was somewhere. A nurse said something about securing valuables. The van had no windows in the back. Margaret sat beside Donald, holding the only personal item they'd been allowed to bring, a photo album from the hall closet. It fell open to a picture from 1985. Their house on move-in day. Rose bushes just planted, Donald's arm around her waist. "Why are we leaving?" Donald asked. "I don't know," Margaret said. The van doors opened to a building with yellow siding and white trim that might have looked cheerful if not for the peeling paint around the windows. The smell hit her first. Industrial cleaner failing to mask something organic and wrong. A woman in a blazer with a name tag reading Patricia Voss, Director, smiled with too many teeth. "Welcome to Serenity Gardens. You're going to be so happy here." Margaret looked back at the van. It was already driving away. Sunday morning arrived through thin curtains that didn't quite close. Margaret had been awake since 4, listening to Donald's breathing in the bed beside hers, cataloging everything wrong. The room was small, not quite institutional, but trying hard to pretend otherwise. 2 beds, 2 dressers, 1 shared bathroom. The photograph from home sat on her nightstand, propped against a lamp that flickered. Someone had unpacked their hastily gathered clothes into the wrong drawers. At 7, an aide arrived with a medication tray. The pills were in paper cups with their names written in marker. "I take lisinopril for blood pressure," Margaret said. 20 milligrams. This looks different." The aide, her name tag said Keisha, barely glanced at the cup. "That's what the chart says." "Could I see the chart?" "I'll ask the nurse." Keisha placed the cups on the dresser and left. No one came back. Breakfast was served in a dining room that smelled like reheated coffee and something that wanted to be eggs. Donald ate slowly, his left hand steadier than yesterday. Margaret noticed the portions, small, institutional, designed for someone who couldn't protest. "Physical therapy at 10, another aide told them. This one's badge read Marcus, not the lawyer, just an unfortunate coincidence. "Be ready in your room." They waited. 10 came and went. At 10:30, Margaret asked at the nurse's station. "Therapist called in sick," someone said without looking up. By Monday evening, Margaret had made a list in her mind. Wrong medication dosage, missed therapy appointment, no return of their phones, secured for safekeeping. And the way staff spoke to Donald, as if his stroke had affected his comprehension rather than just his speech. At dinner, an elderly Chinese man at the next table leaned toward them while an aide refilled water glasses. "Don't drink the evening meds if you want to stay awake," he whispered. His eyes were sharp despite the gray hair and stooped posture. "Why?" Margaret asked. "Watch the others." She did. Around the room, residents sat with glassy expressions, some drooping in wheelchairs. Not the relaxation of contentment, the sedation of compliance. That night, when the medication cups came, Margaret palmed her evening pills and flushed them after the aide left. Donald followed her lead, his right hand clumsy but determined. They lay awake in the flickering lamplight, listening to the quiet shuffle of night staff in the hallway. And Margaret thought about the lawyer's words. Cooperation shows competence. She wondered what resistance proved. Darius Webb learned the janitor's prayer in his 3rd foster home. Be invisible, be useful, be gone before they notice either one. Tuesday morning, he reported to Serenity Gardens with a mop bucket and the kind of desperation that makes $11 an hour sound like salvation. The room above the laundromat cost $300 weekly, and last month's gig apps had earned him $270. Patricia Voss barely looked at his application. No references, no high school diploma, just a birth date that said 16 and a face that said he wouldn't ask questions. "Night custodial," she said. 6 to midnight, cash weekly, don't steal anything. Darius knew what that meant. They paid under the table because they hired people the system had already decided didn't count. The first shift passed in chemical fumes and silence. He mopped corridors while aides scrolled phones at the nurses' station. He emptied trash bins filled with adult briefs and meal trays barely touched. Around 9, he worked his way toward the administrative hallway, the one marked staff only that no one monitored after 5. That's when he heard Patricia Voss through her office door, still open a crack. "The Lockwood property closes escrow in 6 weeks. A pause. "No, Bridgeport wants it fast. Motivated seller." Another pause, then a laugh. "Keep them compliant and we're both paid by Christmas." Darius's mop stopped mid-stroke. He knew about compliance from foster care. Compliance meant shut up. Compliance meant swallow what they give you. Compliance meant survive until you can leave. He moved on before she noticed him. But Wednesday, he started watching. The Lockwoods had a corner room on the 2nd floor. The old man, Donald, according to the chart outside their door, sat in a wheelchair by the window most afternoons, sketching something on napkins with hands that shook. The woman, Margaret, organized pills in a weekly container, her lips moving like she was counting. When an aide brought medications, Margaret compared the bottles against her own container, frowning. They didn't look confused. They looked trapped. Wednesday evening, Darius emptied their trash bin while they ate dinner in the common room. Under crumpled tissues and a half-eaten muffin, he found a piece of notepaper torn from a pad. The handwriting was precise, each letter carefully formed. Wrong medication. Nobody listening. Need help. Darius stood there holding it, 17 years of survival instinct screaming at him to put it back, empty the bin, finish the shift, go home. Helping people got you hurt. Helping people got you noticed. Helping people got you moved to the next placement where they didn't want helpers either. He pocketed the note anyway. That night, lying on the mattress in his rented room while someone's TV played through the wall, he Googled guardianship fraud on his phone. 2 hours later, he'd learned about emergency petitions, conservatorships, and something called predatory guardianship, a scheme where people who couldn't fight back got declared incompetent, warehoused, and systematically drained. Thursday morning, he stopped at the library before his shift. The reference librarian showed him how to search property records online. The Lockwood house, a craftsman on Oak Street, 40 years owned, mortgage satisfied, had been listed for sale 3 days ago. Cash offers only. Motivated seller. Darius knew motivated. Motivated meant desperate. Motivated meant someone else was pulling strings. He arrived at Serenity Gardens that evening with the note still in his pocket and a decision forming like scar tissue. Hard, permanent, probably going to hurt. He found the Lockwoods in their room after dinner. Margaret looked up from her pill organizer. Donald turned from his window. Darius stood in the doorway, still holding his mop. "Your blood pressure medicine," he said. "The dosage is wrong." Margaret Lockwood had learned to read faces during 15 years as a paralegal. Which witnesses would crack on cross-examination, which lawyers were bluffing, which judges had already decided before testimony began. The boy standing in her doorway wore the expression of someone who knew more than he wanted to and less than he needed. "How did you know?" she asked. Darius Webb glanced toward the hallway, then stepped inside and closed the door most of the way. My foster mom had a stroke, he said. The lie came smooth, practiced. Truth was, he'd spent Tuesday night reading medication guides on his phone, but nobody trusted teenagers who said they learned things from Google. He pulled out his phone, pulled up a photo he'd taken of Margaret's chart from the medication cart. Says 30 milligrams prescribed. You're getting 10. He nodded at the pill bottle on her dresser. Someone's pocketing the difference. Resale market. Donald straightened in his wheelchair. His speech came slowly, each word requiring effort, but his eyes were sharp. You work here. Night custodial. You could lose your job, Margaret said. Yeah. Darius put his phone away. You could lose more than that. Silence stretched between them, the kind that holds weight. Outside, someone's TV played a game show. Down the hall, an aide laughed at something on her phone. The building settled around them like a trap that had already sprung. Margaret made her decision. What's your name? Darius. I'm Margaret. This is Donald. She gestured at the chair beside her bed. Sit. Tell us what you've seen. Darius sat. Over the next 20 minutes, he told them. The overheard phone call, the property listing, the billing records he'd glimpsed while emptying Patricia Voss's office trash. Margaret listened like she was taking invisible notes. Donald sketched something on a napkin, not random, Darius realized, but a floor plan of the building, marking camera locations. We need proof, Margaret said finally. Documentation, photographs of records. I could get fired. You could, Donald agreed. Or you could help us get out. Thursday became Friday. Darius brought Margaret's reading glasses from the confiscated belongings closet, hidden in his cleaning cart under trash bags. Margaret cried when she put them on, not from gratitude, though she was grateful, but from the small violence of having them taken in the first place. Friday evening, during shift change chaos, Darius slipped into their room again. This time Margaret asked about his life. Where did he live? Who was his family? Room above a laundromat, he said. No family. Everyone has someone, Margaret said gently. Foster care, aged out in April. Understanding crossed her face. Not pity, which Darius hated, but recognition. She'd read enough case files to know what aging out meant. Turned 18 with nowhere to go, no safety net. No one required to care anymore. Then we're all each other has, she said. Donald reached out, his right hand steadier than his left, and gripped Darius's shoulder. We notice you. He does, said quietly. Something cracked in Darius's chest. The kind of break that hurts before it heals. He'd spent 9 years learning that adults noticed you only when you screwed up or when they wanted something. These two noticed him because he'd noticed them. I'll get you proof, he said. Whatever you need. Later, walking back to the laundromat through October cold, Darius wondered if he'd just made the biggest mistake of his life or the first decision that mattered. Either way, he couldn't unmake it now. Saturday's skeleton crew meant opportunity. Darius arrived at 6 with his mop bucket and a phone charged to full battery. The administrative hallway sat empty, Patricia Voss's office dark behind its frosted glass door. He'd watched her leave at 5:30, briefcase in hand, weekend plans written in her stride. The door wasn't locked. Why would it be? Who'd bother breaking into a care facility's office except someone with something worth stealing? Darius photographed everything his phone's flashlight could illuminate. The guardianship petition with its official stamps and signatures, Margaret's intake forms listing a dementia diagnosis he knew was fabricated, billing statements showing $8,000 monthly for care that didn't exist. His hands shook enough that some photos blurred. He took them twice. The file cabinet's bottom drawer held the real evidence. Email printouts, presumably kept off the digital trail. Vanessa Lockwood's name appeared in thread after thread with Patricia Voss, discussing asset liquidation timelines and maintaining compliance through pharmaceutical management. One email made Darius's stomach clench. Bridgeport Development confirmed $680K cash offer. Closes in 4 weeks. Your consultation fee transfers same day. Keep them cooperative. Vanessa's reply: they won't be a problem. Dad can barely speak. Mom's too old to fight. Darius photographed every page, then returned files exactly as he'd found them. Foster care taught you to cover tracks. Sunday evening, after the dinner service chaos settled and staff retreated to the break room, Darius found the Lockwoods in their bathroom, the only room he was certain had no cameras. They sat on the closed toilet and edge of the tub while he crouched by the door, phone screen glowing between them. Margaret's hand covered her mouth as she read Vanessa's words. Donald's jaw worked like he was trying to speak, but couldn't find language for this particular betrayal. "Dr. Raymond Foster," Margaret said finally, pointing at the diagnosis signature. "Donald, didn't he retire?" 2 years ago. Donald's voice came rough. After his wife died. March 2023. This is dated October 2024. Margaret's paralegal training surfaced, turning grief into evidence. The signatures forged. Darius swiped to the billing records. Daily physical therapy you're not getting. Specialized memory care that's just regular rooms. They're charging you $8,000 a month while selling your house for $680 when it's worth. He pulled up the county assessor's page. $940,000. Vanessa gets early inheritance, Margaret said. The words came flat, affect stripped away like paint down to bare wood. Patricia gets her kickback. We get warehoused until the money runs out, then transferred to Medicaid, somewhere worse. Silence filled the small bathroom. Somewhere down the hall, a TV played a Sunday night movie. An aide laughed at something on her phone. The building settled around them, indifferent to its own corruption. We fight. Margaret looked up from the phone, and Darius saw what she must have been before marriage and motherhood and 40 years of deference. Someone who knew how systems worked and how to break them when they failed. We document everything. We build a case. How? Donald asked. Evidence chain, Margaret said. Darius photographs records, dates, times, everything. I memorize details for testimony. Donald, you stay sharp, prove cognitive capacity however you can. We need to show the guardianship was obtained through fraud. I could lose my job, Darius said. You will lose your job, Margaret corrected. Eventually, they'll notice you noticing. So we work fast. She gripped his hand with surprising strength. But we work together. Agreed? Donald extended his right hand. They clasped, 3 people with nothing left to lose except each other. Agreed, Darius said. Outside the bathroom, Serenity Gardens continued its performance of care. Inside, a conspiracy of the powerless began building its case against the powerful, one photograph at a time. Monday morning brought Darius back to Serenity Gardens with a plan and a burden. The plan? Establish patterns, gather evidence, stay invisible. The burden? Knowing what happened to people who stopped being invisible. He found the Lockwoods at breakfast, Margaret arranging her pills while Donald sketched on a napkin. Darius mopped his way closer, let a folded newspaper slip from his cart onto their table. The headline showed a real estate listing, their house, photographed at dusk to hide the peeling paint Vanessa claimed made it unsafe. Listed at $680,000, $260,000 below assessed value. Margaret's hand closed over the paper. Donald's pencil stopped mid-line. That afternoon, during his lunch break in the staff room, Margaret appeared in the doorway. "I think I'm lost," she said, for the benefit of the aides scrolling her phone nearby. Then, quieter, the supply closet, 5 minutes. They met among boxes of adult diapers and industrial soap. Margaret spread guardianship documents on a shelf, the ones Darius had photographed, now printed at the library. "Teach me what you see," she said. So began their education. Margaret showed him how to read legal filings, where the loopholes hid, which signatures mattered. "Petitioner," she said, pointing. "Respondent. Guardian ad litem. That's the court-appointed investigator. Except look, her finger traced the appointment date. Filed and approved same day. No investigation happened. Tuesday. Darius brought contraband that mattered more than evidence. A carved wooden bird from their house, small enough to hide in his jacket. Donald took it with shaking hands, turning it over like he was reading Braille. "My workshop," he said. The words came easier now, less slurred. 40 years of horses. Where are they? "Storage unit downtown," Darius said. He'd found the receipts in Patricia's office. Monthly rental under Vanessa's name. Wednesday, Margaret noticed Mrs. Abernathy 3 doors down. Another resident, another wrong medication dosage, another person nobody listened to. "It's not just us," she whispered. "It's everyone who can't fight back." Thursday night, Darius photographed the staff schedule. 1 RN for 40 residents, half the state-required ratio. He photographed the medication logs showing drugs checked out but never administered. He photographed everything that would matter later, if later ever came. The Lockwoods grew sharper each day, more engaged, asking questions that made staff uncomfortable. Friday evening, Darius overheard an aide telling Rodriguez, "The Lockwoods are improving. Should we adjust their care plan?" Rodriguez's answer chilled him. "Director says increase the evening dose. Can't have them getting ideas." That night, Darius stood in the supply closet, vitamin bottles in one hand, the Lockwood sedatives in the other. This was the line: switching medications without authorization, practicing medicine without a license. If caught, he'd face more than job loss. Foster kids who messed with prescriptions went to jail. He made the switch anyway. Saturday morning, Donald asked for something that terrified Darius more than theft. "I need tools. Small whittling knife, base wood block." "Can you get them?" "That's contraband. I need to prove I can still think." Donald's hand, steadier now without the sedatives, sketched a carousel horse on his napkin. The detail was intricate, impossible for someone with dementia. "I need evidence of my mind." Margaret touched Darius's arm. "We're asking you to risk everything. We know that. But without proof of Donald's capacity, we have no case." Through the window, late autumn sun hit the parking lot where staff cars sat in spaces marked by hierarchy. Patricia Voss's Mercedes in the spot closest to the door. Rodriguez's Honda near the dumpsters. Darius's bus stop visible beyond the fence. "I'll try," he said. Knowing try wasn't the same as succeed, and succeed wasn't the same as safe. The whittling knife cost $19 at the hardware store. The basewood block, another $12. Darius worked a 4-hour DoorDash shift Friday night to cover it, delivering pad thai and pizza to people who didn't look at him twice. Saturday morning, he smuggled the tools in his lunch bag, wrapped in a sandwich wrapper. Donald took them with ceremony, testing the blade's edge against his thumb. 3 days, he said. That's what I need. The carving happened in stolen moments. During rest hours, when residents were expected to nap or watch TV. During shift changes when staff congregated at the nurses' station. During the quiet spaces institutions create through routine and neglect. Darius watched Donald work Sunday afternoon, the old man's hands moving with precision that belied his stroke. Each cut deliberate, each curve intentional. The carousel horse emerged from basswood like something remembered rather than created. Head thrown back, mane flowing, one hoof raised in mid-gallop. Margaret documented everything on Darius's phone. Timestamps, close-ups of Donald's focused expression, videos of his steady hands performing work that required spatial reasoning, fine motor control, sustained concentration, all the things the dementia diagnosis claimed he'd lost. By Sunday afternoon, the horse was complete. Margaret wept seeing it. Not from sadness, but from witnessing her husband reclaim himself through craft, proving with wood and blade what words couldn't. His mind remained sharp, his capacity intact, his personhood undimmed by stroke or systems designed to diminish him. "It's beautiful," Darius said. Donald turned it in the light. "It's evidence." Footsteps in the hallway, Rodriguez's voice. "Who left wood shavings outside 204? Darius moved on instinct, grabbed his mop bucket from the corridor, accidentally kicked it over. Water flooded the hallway, triggering chaos. Aides shouted. Rodriguez rushed toward the spill. In the confusion, Margaret wrapped the carousel horse in a pillowcase, shoved it under her mattress. Rodriguez searched their room 10 minutes later, finding nothing but an elderly couple watching television. But her eyes lingered on Darius, mopping the hallway outside, working too carefully, too close to their door. "You," she said. Darius kept his eyes down, posture submissive. "Yes, ma'am?" "You're too helpful." Not accusation yet, but warning. "People here? They're not your friends. They're residents. Your staff. Remember the difference?" "Yes, ma'am." She watched him another moment, then left. Darius finished mopping with hands that barely shook. Foster care taught you to absorb warnings without showing fear. That night, lying in his rented room while someone's argument filtered through the wall, Darius thought about the carousel horse hidden in Margaret's pillowcase. Evidence of capacity. Proof of mind. The thing that might save them or destroy him, depending on who saw it first. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Thank you. We see you too." M. Darius stared at the message, wondering when seeing and being seen had become the same as family, and whether that would be enough when Rodriguez's suspicion hardened into action. He fell asleep, still wondering. The carousel horse spinning through his dreams, like proof that beautiful things could exist, even in places designed to destroy them. Vanessa arrived Monday morning with flowers and performance. White roses, Margaret's favorites, though Vanessa hadn't remembered that detail in 8 years. She'd looked it up, probably, or had her assistant do it. The bouquet came with a card. "Thinking of you. Love, V." "Mom, Dad." Vanessa's voice carried through the common room, pitched for the staff at the nurses' station. "You look wonderful. So well cared for." Margaret kept her face slack, confused. Donald stared out the window, pretending not to hear. They'd practiced this. How to seem diminished without actually being diminished. How to let Vanessa's narrative hold while building their own. In their room, door closed, Vanessa dropped the performance like a coat. "You're safe here. The house needed too much work anyway. The foundation, the roof, all those repairs. This is better." Margaret said nothing. Donald's hand trembled. Not from stroke, but from rage he had to swallow. "I'll visit more often," Vanessa continued, arranging the roses in a vase someone would throw away tomorrow. "Once things settle." She kissed Margaret's forehead, the gesture cold and obligatory, then left trailing perfume and lies. After she was gone, Margaret wept. Not for the betrayal, she'd processed that, but for the skill of it, the practiced ease with which Vanessa convinced everyone, including herself, that she was the devoted daughter making hard choices. "She's convincing," Donald said. "The legal system believes her. Then we need the system to believe us more." Tuesday, Darius uploaded their evidence to Legal Aid's website during his library visit. Anonymous submission, photos attached, subject line, "Elder abuse at Serenity Gardens." The auto reply came immediately. "Thank you for contacting Legal Aid. Response time is 3 to 4 weeks. If this is an emergency, please call 911. 3 to 4 weeks. They didn't have 3 weeks. Wednesday morning, Patricia Voss summoned Darius to her office. He went expecting termination. What he got was worse. "Your background check came back." Patricia sat behind her desk like a judge delivering sentence. "Foster care, 11 placements, eviction last year from a group home." She smiled without warmth. "You're exactly who we hire. People nobody listens to." Darius kept his eyes down, posture submissive. The performance he'd learned young. "I mention this because Rodriguez says you're spending time with residents, the Lockwoods specifically." Patricia leaned forward. "We appreciate dedication, but these residents aren't your friends. They're not your family. They're people with serious cognitive impairments who need professional care, not a janitor who thinks he understands their situation." "Yes, ma'am." "Don't get ideas," Patricia said. "About helping, about intervening, about being a hero. Heroes get hurt, and people like you, nobody notices when you're hurt. Nobody cares." It wasn't a threat. It was an observation. The kind that cuts deeper because it's partially true. Darius finished his shift in mechanical silence, then caught the bus to the laundromat. His room smelled like detergent and someone else's fried rice. He lay on the mattress staring at his phone, Patricia's words echoing. "People like you. Nobody cares." His phone buzzed. "Margaret, from Mr. Chen's contraband cell. Are you okay?" That night, Darius returned to Serenity Gardens after hours, using the excuse of a forgotten jacket. He found the Lockwoods in their room, Donald sketching while Margaret organized their evidence photos on the bathroom floor. "I might need to quit," Darius said. "They know I'm helping you. If I lose this job, I lose my room. If I lose my room..." Margaret gripped his hand. Her skin was paper thin, but her grip was steel. "We're your family now. We protect each other." "I'm nobody," Darius said. "That's what she said. I'm exactly who they hire because nobody listens to people like me." "Then we make them listen," Donald said. "Together." The word hung in the air like a promise or a prayer. Together. 3 people with nothing left to lose except each other, building something fragile and fierce against the machinery designed to grind them down. Thursday morning brought hope in the form of a memo taped to the nurses' station. State social worker Janice Palmer conducting welfare checks Friday, 11 a.m. Margaret saw it during her supervised walk to physical therapy that still didn't exist. She memorized the name, the time, the opportunity. That evening, she and Donald rehearsed with Darius in the bathroom, the only space they trusted. "She'll ask about your care," Darius said. "Medications, therapy, whether you feel safe." "We tell the truth," Margaret said. "Carefully," Donald added. "If we seem too competent, they'll say we're faking confusion to avoid guardianship. If we seem too confused, we prove their point." They practiced the balance. Alert, but not aggressive. Concerned, but not hysterical. Victims seeking help, rather than troublemakers making accusations. Friday morning destroyed their plan. Breakfast came with extra pills, small, white, unlabeled. Margaret recognized the trap. "We don't take these," she whispered. But the aide stood watching until they swallowed. Margaret tried to palm hers. The aide caught her wrist. "Doctor's orders for the agitation." 20 minutes later, the world went soft around the edges. Margaret tried to hold on to thoughts, but they drifted like leaves in water. Across from her, Donald's head drooped. They'd been sedated for the performance. Janice Palmer arrived at 11 sharp. Darius, mopping the hallway outside the Lockwoods' room, watched her through the glass, mid-50s, carrying a tablet and the exhausted expression of someone who'd seen too much and believed too little. The interview lasted 12 minutes. Palmer asked questions Margaret answered through fog. Donald tried to speak clearly, but the words came thick and slow. Every symptom confirmed the official narrative: cognitive decline, need for supervision, appropriate placement. "They're normally alert," Darius said from the doorway. Palmer looked at him the way people look at furniture that speaks. "And you are?" "Custodial staff. I work here." "They're not usually like this." "Young man, I appreciate your concern, but I'm a licensed clinical social worker with 16 years experience. I think I can assess their condition." She turned back to her tablet, checking boxes. Residents appear comfortable. Care appropriate. No concerns noted. Darius followed her to the parking lot. "They're being drugged. The guardianship is fraud. Her daughter is selling their house while they're sedated here." Palmer stopped at her car, one hand on the door. "Do you have a law degree?" "No." "Medical degree? Social work license? Any professional credential that would qualify you to make that assessment?" "I have evidence. Photos of..." "Then take it to the police, or a lawyer. But don't waste my time with conspiracy theories from someone who mops floors." She got in her car and drove away. Darius returned to find Margaret weeping. Not from the drugs, though they made her helpless, but from the particular despair of being dismissed by the very system designed to protect you. Donald sat motionless in his wheelchair, staring at nothing. The man who'd carved a carousel horse with steady hands now looked exactly like the incompetent person the guardianship papers claimed him to be. "I'm sorry," Darius said. "Not your fault," Margaret managed through tears. "The system works for them, not us." That afternoon, Margaret didn't eat. Donald didn't speak. Darius mopped their hallway 3 times, unable to leave, unable to help, watching the people he'd come to love disappear into the chemical fog that kept them compliant. This was their lowest point. The moment when fighting seemed futile, when systems proved stronger than truth, when even witnesses who cared couldn't make anyone listen. Saturday morning arrived with Vanessa and her lawyer like executioners announcing the date. They found the Lockwoods in the common room, still foggy from Friday's forced sedation, and delivered their news with triumphant efficiency. "The court has scheduled the final guardianship hearing," Vanessa's lawyer announced, loud enough for staff to hear his professional concern. "Wednesday morning, just 5 days away." Vanessa touched Margaret's shoulder, the gesture performed for the audience of aides at the nurses' station. "This is good news, Mom. Once the permanent guardianship is established, we can really focus on your care needs, long-term planning, stability." Margaret kept her face blank, playing the role they'd forced on her. Beside her, Donald stared at his hands. The lawyer produced a camera, photographing them in their medicated stupor. "For the court record," he explained. "Documentation of current condition." Evidence of incapacity, Margaret understood. Every slurred word, every drooping eyelid, every moment of sedated compliance would be presented as proof they needed permanent supervision, Once the guardianship became permanent, reversing it would require proving not just fraud, but overcoming legal precedent that favored stability over justice. After they left, Margaret found clarity through rage. 5 days. Wednesday, Donald said. His speech was clearer now, the sedatives wearing off. They want us docile for the hearing. That afternoon, staff increased security. Darius arrived for his shift to find Rodriguez waiting. Your access to the administrative wing is revoked. You clean common areas only. Residence rooms during supervised hours. No exceptions. Yes, ma'am. She watched him with suspicion that had hardened into certainty. This is your last warning, Webb. Do your job. Nothing else. Darius spent Saturday mopping the same hallway 3 times, unable to reach the Lockwoods' room, unable to help. Sunday was his day off, normally spent doing DoorDash or sleeping. But desperation drove him to the county courthouse downtown. Closed. Sunday hours, none. He sat on the courthouse steps while November wind cut through his jacket, phone in hand, Googling emergency guardianship appeal and finding only lawyer websites charging consultation fees he couldn't afford. Legal Aid's website still showed his anonymous submission as pending review. Monday morning, week 4. Darius camped outside the Legal Aid office before it opened, sitting on cold concrete with a travel mug of convenience store coffee. Staff arrived at 8:30. Clients were seen by appointment only. He didn't have an appointment. Please, Darius said to the receptionist. I have evidence of elder abuse. The final hearing is Wednesday. Fill out an intake form. Someone will call you within... I don't have time for someone to call me. At noon, a woman emerged from an interior office, 30-something, wearing a suit that had seen better days and an expression that suggested she'd seen worse cases. You're the kid who's been sitting in my waiting room for 3 hours? Yes, ma'am. Rebecca Chen, elder law. You have 5 minutes while I eat lunch. Darius showed her everything on his phone. The forged signature, the billing fraud, the emails between Patricia Voss and Vanessa. Rebecca's sandwich sat forgotten while she scrolled through photos, her expression shifting from skeptical to focused to angry. This is criminal elder abuse, she said finally. But we have 3 days to file an emergency motion, get it heard, and prove it. Can the Lockwoods testify? If they're not drugged. Can you keep them alert until Thursday? I'll try. Rebecca stood, sandwich abandoned. I'll file the motion today. Emergency hearing Thursday morning, day after the permanent guardianship hearing. If we're lucky, the judge will consolidate them. She met his eyes. But luck hasn't been on your side so far, has it? No, ma'am. Then we make our own. She gathered her files. Keep them conscious. Keep them safe. I'll handle the law. Darius left with a ticking clock in his chest. 72 hours to Thursday, and everything depended on keeping the Lockwoods alert enough to testify while staff tried to sedate them into submission. Rebecca Chen filed the emergency motion at 3:47 p.m. Monday afternoon, her fingers flying across the keyboard while Darius sat in her cramped Legal Aid office eating a convenience store sandwich he couldn't taste. The printer spat out pages that might save 3 lives or damn them all. Hearings Thursday morning, Rebecca said, not looking up. Judge Weston. She's fair, but she doesn't tolerate games from either side. She stapled documents with sharp, angry clicks. Can the Lockwoods testify coherently if they're not drugged? Then keep them alert. Rebecca met his eyes. Whatever it takes. Darius returned to Serenity Gardens that evening, knowing it was his last shift. Patricia Voss stood at the nurse's station like a sentinel, watching him collect his mop bucket with an expression that promised consequences. He found the Lockwoods in their room after dinner, both unnaturally still. Margaret's hands lay folded in her lap. Wrong, because Margaret's hands were never idle. Donald stared at the window where nothing moved. "Evening meds were strong," Margaret said quietly when the hallway cleared. Her words came thick, fighting through chemical fog. "They're preparing us for Wednesday's hearing." Wednesday. Vanessa's permanent guardianship petition. Once that went through, Thursday's emergency motion wouldn't matter. You couldn't challenge what was already decided. Darius pulled the pill bottles from his cleaning cart, hands steadier than his breathing. He'd spent Sunday night researching medication interactions on his phone, cross-referencing dosages against treatment guidelines, teaching himself emergency pharmaceutical knowledge the way foster care taught you emergency survival. "Starting tonight, you get vitamins," he said, showing them the switched bottles. "Placebo. By Wednesday, you'll be clear-headed, but might have withdrawal symptoms." "Shaking," Margaret said. "Nausea. They'll call it agitation. Pretend to be confused anyway." Darius crouched between their chairs. "Wednesday, play their game. Thursday, you fight back." They worked through the night like students cramming for an exam that would determine everything. Margaret memorized dates, the forged signature, the medication switches, the day Vanessa first visited with her lawyer. Donald practiced speaking clearly, each word requiring concentration, but coming stronger than yesterday. Darius photographed their witness statements on his phone, Margaret's paralegal training transforming rage into evidence. Donald's surveyor precision mapping the timeline of their dispossession. Tuesday brought the axe. Rodriguez summoned him at noon. "You're terminated," she said without preamble. "Effective Wednesday morning. Security footage shows you in residence rooms after hours. Patricia wants you escorted out." Darius had expected this, planned for it even. "My last shift ends tonight. Be gone by midnight." That evening, Darius helped Donald wrap the carousel horse in tissue paper, evidence of capacity, proof of mind. Margaret held it like she was holding hope itself. "Tomorrow we're alone," she said. "Thursday you won't be." Darius squeezed her hand. "Rebecca files at 8 a.m. I'll be in that courtroom, even if I have to sleep on the courthouse steps." "You'll lose this job," Donald said. "Already did. You could lose more." "Yeah." Darius looked at them. These people who'd become his family in 3 weeks, who'd taught him that seeing and being seen mattered more than safety. "But I could lose you. That's worse." Margaret pulled him into a hug that smelled like industrial soap. And something else. Something he'd never had before. Belonging. At midnight, Darius walked out of Serenity Gardens for the last time. His phone full of evidence, his heart full of fear, carrying the weight of 3 lives toward Thursday morning's fragile chance at justice. Wednesday morning arrived with medication cups and lies. Margaret recognized the pills immediately, larger doses than yesterday, white tablets that meant compliance rather than care. She glanced at Donald. He gave the smallest nod. They performed their act with desperate precision. Pills under tongues, fake swallows, napkins concealing evidence once the aide left, chattering about her weekend plans like the Lockwoods were furniture. "Withdrawal," Margaret whispered after the door closed. Her hands shook, not from sedatives now absent, but from her body remembering them. Nausea. It's starting. Donald gripped the wheelchair arms. 3 days without evening sedatives had restored steadiness to his hands, clarity to his speech. Tomorrow, he'd need both. They made it until 2 p.m. The nurse who arrived wasn't Keisha or any of the rotating aides. She was older, efficient, carrying a tray with 2 syringes that caught the light like promises of oblivion. "Doctor's orders," she said, "for agitation." "We're not agitated." Margaret stood, placing herself between the nurse and Donald. "We don't consent. The guardianship gives your daughter medical authority." The nurse's voice held practiced patience, the kind that dismissed resistance as symptom. "This is for your own good." "No." The word came from Donald. Clear, strong, the voice of the man he'd been before stroke, and systems tried to diminish him. He stood from the wheelchair, surprising everyone, including himself, and positioned his body as shield. "You will not touch my wife." The nurse pressed the call button. Security arrived in 90 seconds. 2 men who'd watched this scene play out with other residents who fought back. They were gentle but inexorable, hands on Donald's shoulders, forcing him down, while the nurse approached Margaret. "Please," Margaret said, and hated herself for begging. "We have a court hearing tomorrow. Emergency motion. We need to be alert." "Tomorrow you'll feel much better." The needle slid into her arm with practiced efficiency. "Just relax." Donald fought until the syringe pierced his shoulder. Then he stopped fighting and started memorizing. The nurse's name badge, the security guards' faces, the timestamp on the wall clock showing 2:17 p.m. Evidence for later, if later came. By evening, they were parked in the day room, heavily sedated among other residents warehoused for profit. Margaret's head drooped. Donald's hands lay slack. Around them, televisions played programs no one watched, while staff scrolled phones and ignored the people they were paid to see. Mr. Chen watched from his corner chair. He'd survived Serenity Gardens by appearing more confused than he was, by keeping secrets and choosing moments. This was a moment. His contraband cell phone, hidden in a hollowed-out book Rebecca had smuggled months ago, came out during shift change chaos. His arthritic fingers typed slowly. They drugged them. Bad. Tomorrow's hearing. Rebecca's response came within seconds. "Can you keep them awake?" "No. Haldol. Professional dose." Rebecca called Darius 3 minutes later. He was sitting on the courthouse steps where he'd planned to spend the night, wrapped in his jacket against November cold. "They drugged them heavy," Rebecca said without preamble. "Haldol. They'll be incoherent tomorrow." Darius closed his eyes. 3 weeks of work, all that evidence. Meaningless if the Lockwoods couldn't testify, couldn't prove capacity, couldn't speak for themselves. "Can you get in?" Rebecca asked. Security had his photo. His key card was deactivated. Patricia Voss probably had police on speed dial waiting for him to trespass. "I'll try," Darius said. He caught the last bus towards Serenity Gardens, watching the city pass through grimy windows, and thought about the carousel horse wrapped in tissue paper, about Margaret teaching him to read legal documents, about Donald saying "we notice you" like that mattered more than safety. Tomorrow they'd either save themselves or lose everything. Tonight, Darius would keep them conscious enough to fight. The bus pulled up to a stop. Darius stepped into the cold, heading toward a building where he was no longer welcome, carrying nothing but determination and the knowledge that family meant showing up when systems said you didn't matter. He'd show up, whatever it cost. Darius returned to Serenity Gardens at 11:40 p.m., standing in shadows across the street while his breath made clouds in November air. The building sat quiet except for flickering television light in one window. Night shift meant one aide, maybe asleep in the break room. His old key card slid into the reader. Green light. They hadn't deactivated it yet. Bureaucracy moved slower than urgency. He found the Lockwoods in their room, slumped in chairs like abandoned puppets. Margaret's head lolled. Donald's mouth hung open. The Haldol had hit them hard. Margaret, Darius touched her shoulder. We need to walk. She made a sound that might have been protest or agreement. He pulled her up, her weight surprising against him. Donald was heavier, requiring both hands to lift from the wheelchair he didn't actually need. They walked. Hallway laps while fluorescent lights hummed overhead. Margaret's feet dragged. Donald shuffled like a man underwater. But movement fought the sedation better than stillness. Come on, Darius whispered. Stay with me. Thursday morning you testify. You tell them everything. Around and around, past the day room with its blank television, past Mr. Chen's door where light showed underneath, the old man keeping vigil, past empty corridors that smelled like disinfectant and institutional failure. By 1 a.m., Margaret's steps came steadier. By 2, Donald spoke his first word, cold. Darius detoured to the break room, poured coffee from the pot that never emptied, added sugar until it was syrup. Margaret drank, gagging. Donald forced down half a cup. Dr. Foster retired March 2023, Margaret said suddenly, the words thick but clear. Signature dated October 2024, forged. That's right. Relief flooded Darius. Keep saying that. Remember it. 3 a.m. brought coherence through exhaustion. Margaret practiced her testimony while Darius walked her in circles. Donald held the carousel horse wrapped in tissue paper, his fingers remembering its curves. 4 a.m. brought Rodriguez. She appeared in the hallway like judgment, her face shifting from shock to fury to calculation. You're trespassing. They're my patients. They're your prisoners, Darius said. Rodriguez pulled her phone. I'm calling the police. Breaking and entering. Possibly kidnapping. Do it. Darius positioned himself between her and the Lockwoods, foster care teaching him how to make his body a barrier. Call them. We'll wait. But fear crawled up his spine because if police arrested him before the hearing, everything collapsed. Rebecca's emergency motion meant nothing without witnesses. The Lockwoods would be returned to Patricia Voss's control, sedated into permanent compliance. Rodriguez dialed, spoke rapidly, hung up. They're coming! Margaret gripped Darius's arm. Donald stood straighter, finding strength through the chemical fog. They waited together while sirens approached. 4:30 a.m. brought salvation in the form of Rebecca Chen, still wearing yesterday's suit, clutching papers that rustled like hope. She burst through the entrance behind 2 police officers, speaking before anyone else could. These are my clients under emergency court protection filed Monday. Any interference constitutes witness tampering. This young man is their designated advocate. She thrust papers at the nearest officer. Touch him and I'll add charges. The officers looked at Rodriguez, at Darius, at the Lockwoods, standing alert despite the drugs trying to pull them under. Nobody moved. Sergeant's on his way, one officer said finally. By 5 a.m. they'd negotiated standoff into solution. Police escort to the courthouse at 8. No arrests. No returns to Serenity Gardens. Everyone together until Judge Weston could hear what 3 weeks of evidence had built toward. Margaret squeezed Darius's hand. Donald met his eyes. Rebecca nodded once. They'd made it to Thursday. Now, they just had to win. The courtroom smelled like old wood and new anxiety. Darius sat behind Rebecca's table, watching people file in. Vanessa and her lawyer looking confident. Patricia Voss absent but represented by counsel. The Lockwoods beside him, still fighting through Haldol's fog. Judge Sandra Weston entered at 8:03. 60-something, gray hair pulled back, eyes that had seen every manipulation humans invented. Be seated. We're consolidating 2 matters. the permanent guardianship petition, and an emergency motion challenging it. Vanessa's lawyer stood. Marcus Brennan, expensive suit, practiced sympathy. Your Honor, the Lockwoods require permanent supervision. Their decline is documented. He presented medical reports Margaret knew were falsified. Photographs of her and Donald sedated yesterday, evidence of incapacity rather than drugging. Vanessa testified next, crying on cue. I just want them safe. The house was falling apart. Dad can barely speak. Mom's so confused. Her voice broke perfectly. This is killing me. Darius watched the judge's face. Neutral, listening, unmoved but not convinced. Rebecca stood. Your Honor, I'd like to present evidence of systematic elder abuse and fraud. She laid out the forged signature first, calling a handwriting expert who testified Dr. Foster's signature was fake. Then billing records showing phantom therapy. Then emails between Patricia Voss and Vanessa Lockwood discussing kickbacks and asset liquidation. Brennan objected. These photos come from an unreliable source, a minor with a history of foster care placement failures. What failures? Rebecca's voice cut sharp. Please cite them. Brennan fumbled through papers, finding nothing because nothing existed except prejudice dressed as concern. May the Lockwoods testify? Rebecca asked. Judge Weston studied Margaret and Donald, seeing past the medication haze to the people underneath. Proceed? Margaret took the stand. Her hands shook, but her voice held steady. Dr. Raymond Foster retired March 2023 after his wife died. This diagnosis is dated October 2024. The signature is forged. She walked through the timeline, the 72-hour seizure of their autonomy, the medication fraud, the financial exploitation. Her paralegal training emerged, transforming trauma into evidence. Donald followed, speaking slowly, each word requiring effort, but accurate. He explained property survey law, their mortgage satisfaction, their financial competence. I built carousel horses, he said. 40 years, festivals, hospitals. You don't forget how. Rebecca placed the carousel horse on the evidence table. Judge Weston stood, walked closer, examined the intricate carving. Her professional mask slipped, just for a moment, into something like wonder. She touched the carved mane, the raised hoof, the detail that required hours of sustained concentration. You made this? She asked Donald. Sunday, week 2, while they claimed I had dementia. Darius testified last. He explained what he'd witnessed, what he'd photographed, what 3 weeks at Serenity Gardens had taught him about systems that profit from powerlessness. Brennan tried to discredit him. Foster kid, no family, exactly who facilities hire because nobody listens. I listened, Darius said. That's the difference. Judge Weston called recess. 15 minutes that stretched like hours. Darius sat beside the Lockwoods, all three holding hands, waiting for a system to choose between protecting the vulnerable or perpetuating their exploitation. 11 a.m., Judge Weston returned. Guardianship petition denied and dissolved. Evidence suggests criminal elder abuse and fraud. I'm referring this matter to the district attorney. She looked at Vanessa, at Patricia Voss's attorney. You should be ashamed. The courtroom erupted. Rebecca hugged Margaret. Donald gripped Darius's shoulder. They'd won. But freedom came with losses. Their house sold 3 days ago. They were victorious and homeless, vindicated and dispossessed. Still, walking out into November morning, Darius realized they'd gained something systems couldn't take: each other. Judge Weston returned at 11:17, her face revealing nothing. The courtroom held its breath. Lawyers, witnesses, 3 people who'd built a case from photographs and desperation. Guardianship petition denied and dissolved. Her voice cut through silence like verdict and vindication. Evidence presented suggests criminal elder abuse and fraud. I'm referring this matter to the district attorney's office with recommendation for immediate investigation. She looked directly at Vanessa, then at Patricia Voss's attorney. You should be ashamed. The courtroom erupted. Rebecca hugged Margaret. Donald gripped Darius's shoulder with hands that had carved proof of his undiminished mind. They'd won. Systems could still protect people when evidence and advocates aligned. But victory came with asterisks. Your house, Rebecca said quietly outside the courthouse, November's sun hitting their exhausted faces. The sale closed Monday. Bridgeport Development owns it now. Legal aid can help you sue for recovery, but it takes months, years sometimes. Margaret nodded like she'd expected this. You could win in court and still lose everything that mattered. That afternoon, the 3 of them stood outside the Craftsman on Oak Street. Someone had already changed the locks. Rose bushes Donald had planted 40 years ago still climbed the porch, indifferent to ownership disputes. New paint samples sat on the doorstep. The developers were already planning renovations. We lost it, Donald said. Not angry anymore, just stating fact. We lost the building, Margaret corrected, but we gained something else. She turned to Darius. This boy who'd risked his job and his safety and his tenuous hold on stability because he'd noticed what trained professionals ignored. The garage apartment has a separate title, legal quirk from when we refinanced in 1998. It's still ours. That's your property, Darius said. It's our family's property. Margaret's hand found his. If you want it. Darius looked at them. These people who'd become his family, not through biology or obligation, but through the choice to see each other, to fight when fighting mattered. He thought about his rented room above the laundromat, about 17 years of learning that attachments ended in abandonment. Yes, he said. I want it. 6 weeks later, the Lockwoods lived in a legal aid-secured rental while lawsuits proceeded through courts that moved slower than justice required. Darius moved into the garage apartment after settlement negotiations returned it to them. Small victory amid larger loss. Donald set up a workshop in the garage's back corner, teaching Darius woodworking while Margaret helped him apply to community college. Paralegal program, using his experience as his essay. How systems fail vulnerable people, how evidence matters, how family means showing up. They ate dinner together every night in the rental's cramped kitchen. Not what they were before. They'd lost too much to pretend otherwise. But something better, something chosen. 3 months after the hearing, Darius carved his first carousel horse. Not museum quality like Donald's work, but recognizable. Head thrown back, mane flowing, one hoof raised mid-gallop. Evidence of concentration, of teaching received and skills passed forward. Donald guided Darius's hands across the wood, showing him where to cut, how to feel the grain. Margaret photographed the moment. Not for evidence this time, but for memory. For proof that beautiful things could grow from terrible ones. Outside, November had become February. Inside, something fragile and fierce had taken root. A family formed not by blood, but by the choice to notice each other, to protect each other, to rebuild what systems tried to destroy. The carousel horse took shape between them, imperfect, learning, alive. Darius carved while Donald taught and Margaret witnessed. And in that garage apartment they'd fought to keep. They built something courts couldn't dissolve and fraud couldn't diminish. They built home. Not the house they'd lost, but the thing that mattered more. People who chose to stay, who chose to see, who chose each other despite every system teaching them that survival meant looking away. The horse emerged from basswood like hope carved from despair, proof that family wasn't about walls and deeds. It was about who showed up when everything else was gone.